Hi everyone. So the other day, about 2 days ago, I think I did the unboxing and I gathered some scraps and stamps and dies and things that I thought I might use to make alternatives for the Welcome In Paper Pumpkin Kit for June 2023. I will forewarn others that didn't see that I am not a demonstrator. So my alternatives, while they will have many Stampin' Up! Products, they may also use other products. So anyway, let me show you what I have left. This was a really pretty kit. I did make 3 cards as intended because I thought they were pretty as they were. And then the rest of the kit I used to make another 15 alternatives. Now the kit was supposed to make 9 cards, and so I have 18 cards altogether. And that's with using 3 as intended. So I probably could have made more alternatives. I of course have the stamp set and the little spot that came with it. I love this stamp and this stamp and this stamp. I only used the welcome, and I used it on the very last card, I think, or the next to last card. I like this die that goes with this because it does cut just inside the stamped line, so you don't get any white on the edge. I really like that. Same with this. This is a little trickier, but there's a trick to lining it up. And then this is a standalone die. So what I have left, I have this much of these left, and I'll probably use them for like a shaker card or something at some point. I didn't make a shaker. I have one of these left, and I have a bunch of these left because most of the time I stamped on cardstock. Because here's how I am not very good at stamping on those images. I got it lopsided. Now, I will tell you, do not throw this out if you get it lopsided, because on one of the cards towards the end, I'm going to show you something you can do with that. And then I do have these left. I wasn't liking them other than in the way they did it. Anyway, I have one little strip of a card here. This wasn't even from this. This is a piece of envelope. This was a piece of card, but it's where the seam was, and I do use those, and I did on some of the cards. And this was a piece, you'll see it on a card where I actually this wasn't on there, but I stuck it on, and anyway, because I did that, I kind of ruined it. And then these were some scraps. These are going in the recycle bin or the trash bin, actually. And then I thought about tossing these. I wish they would have given us this stamp too, because I really like that one, like that. But they didn't. So, and I didn't do this on any of the cards. I thought of it at the end. But, and since I have these two, I might just toss this. But I thought I could use these as a stencil and do vases, you know, like a stencil. So I'm going to hang on to that one. And then that's it. That's all I have left. I used up all the dimensionals. I mean I did bring in my own dimensionals though, and glue dots and tape runner and glue and stuff. All right, so I did also use these Pink Fresh Studio standalone cuts. They're basic label frames. I don't know when I got this. It's been a while. It says copyright 2019. So I think I've had this probably since about 2019, or yeah, something like that, or 20. Anyway, I used some of these, I believe, and some of these. And you'll see them on the cards. And the rest of it I showed you on the last video, I think, but I'll tell you when we get to the cards. Okay, let me bring them in. Here's my stack of cards. All right, these first 3 are just the ones as intended. Boom, boom, and boom. The only difference is 2 things. On this one, I didn't use the thanks for your hospitality. I used just a note. And that was out of the special, go-to greetings. It was the larger one here. On some of the cards, I will use this little one, and I think they're the only sentiments I used on that. And then on this card, I did it all the same, except that I stamped off the Night of Navy to get a little faded blue because I didn't want it as dark as what they showed it. And it sort of is about the color of Misty Moonlight when you do that, just so you know. And then this one I did exactly as they said. So those are those three. Didn't do anything on the envelopes. Okay, so here's my first alternative. I had showed you in my other video that I was going to use some scraps I had of this paper, which I think was a celebration paper perhaps a while ago. I don't know. I had it in my scraps mixed in with others. So all I did is I put it on a Night of Navy card base. No, I'm sorry. I put it on a basic white thick card base. The Night of Navy is actually one piece of this card. I'm going to leave this here because I'm going to probably keep referring to it. Then I did this part almost exactly the same, except that I stamped in boho blue. I also brought in some washi tape, and that is from Globeland. It came in a pack of 2 of these boxes, and on this card I used this blue because it looked very much like boho blue. On a later card I used this because it looks like old olive, and I'll show you that when we get there. And so I just wrapped the washi around the back of the blue card base or mat, and then I used Thank You out of Earth and Textures right here, and I just stamped it right on that label, and amazingly I got it fairly straight. And then 3 of the dots. So that's a pretty easy alternative. You know, use your scraps. If you don't have that scrap, that's okay. Find scraps you do have, and that would make a nice background, like with florals in it or something. And then this was one of the punch outs. This was one of the punch outs. So that's the very easy first card. And these will go back in my scrap bin later. Then the next one, this one I used the other half of that Night of Navy, but I put it on boho blue cardstock this time, and it is cut this way. This I wanted texture back here, and I was gonna run stuff through an embossing folder, but then I remembered I had said that I was going to use this paper out of the Gone Fishing Let's Go Fishing 12 by 12 designer series paper. The back is the blue fish. I love that sheet of paper. It looks like, it could look like wood, but it also sort of has some texture to it that it could look like fabric, like denim. In fact, it does look like denim to me. So I took, I can't remember now if it was this one or this one. I don't know. I think it was this one because this was plain except for the stitchery, and I cut it in half or a little more than half. I used some ribbon called Bordered Ribbon in Night of Navy. That was from the January to April mini catalog 2023. I don't know if it carried over or not. I don't think so, but maybe. So I made it look like a pocket on a denim shirt kind of thing. But I stamped this vase in Night of Navy, or pot, whatever. And then I colored it in with Dark Daffodil Delight, Light Old Olive, and I think that's it. And I also colored in the stripes here. I have a little, I don't know how I get this stray glue stuff on things. I have a glue eraser, but I didn't notice that before. Okay, this is bumped up on the strips, probably with a few dimensionals in the middle. I did use one of the labels, and here I used that Just a Note from the Go-To Greetings, and 3 little of the embellishments that came in the kit. And inside, just another strip of that denim paper. I really like that one. And just a plain envelope, basic white envelope on that one. Okay, next up, this is another scrap I think that piece was exactly like that, or maybe, yeah, because I don't think, no, I have this much left. It was a floral. That might have been a celebration item too. I can't remember. So I put this on Night of Navy card base. I used Daffodil Delight behind it. This is another one of the cards that I cut. And this is the piece from here. But I again stamped and die cut. I stamped the stamp in Night of Navy. I colored it in Dark Daffodil Delight, Light Olive Green, and a little bit of Calypso Coral in there. I took the Dark Daffodil Delight Stampin' Blend alcohol marker and white twine, which was out of this pack, Baker's Twine Essentials pack. I think that's still available. I used the white and I just colored it on a scrap of paper twice, and then I kind of rolled it in that paper to make sure I got the excess off, and just put a little bow on here. I think that came out really pretty, and this is right out of the kit. The embellishments are right out of the kit, and inside a strip of Daffodil Delight and a little strip just like this of the paper that I had left. So I really like that one. That might be one of my favorites. I don't know. I can't tell. All right. Then I moved on to this card base, but of course I cut, since it had the pattern on the front and the back, I cut it in half. Actually, I cut it at 4, which left the seam, and some of those seams I used on inside the cards. So I took the other piece of this card and I cut it into sections just to do something different in the background. And then I put this right on top of it. I used navy blue twine, and I believe that's retired. That was from Well Suited Twine Combo Pack in navy. And I just put a little bow right on the vase there. This was one of the punch outs. And I put this all on a boho blue card base. And inside's just a piece of, it is the piece of the card. I don't know if you can see it. There is a seam there. But I figured on the inside of the card, you know, because what I do is I take the card front, I cut it to 4, and then I cut it to 4 from the other direction also, and that gives you this little 1/2 inch strip, including the little seam there. And I thought that envelope, of course, went well with that. So very pretty. So the next one, I did another little pocket, but this time I brought in a scrap. I don't remember which. This might have been out of Well Suited or one before that. I had this weird shaped scrap, but this was longer, and I cut off a piece to go across the center. It also has like texture look to it here. So now we have like, it almost looks like paisley right in the background, even though it's floral. And then this, and then You Are Proof There Is Good in the World, also out of that Earth and Textures. I like that, and I used the ribbon again. I don't know, I kind of feel like I needed to stick something out the top, but I didn't want to. You know what would be really cute sticking out of there is like a handkerchief shape. I might end up doing that, I don't know. Inside is just blank. And that's on a, that's on a Night of Navy card base. And I just cut this down to 4, but I left it, I left it at 5.5 this time to go all the way up and down to make it look like a taller card. Yeah, so that's all I did on that one. Very easy. And this was the other half of that same piece from, where is it? From this one. These were from the same piece here. So 2 pockets. Oops. And then the other half of this card I again put on Night of Navy, but I cut up an envelope, and this is what I did. This vase is actually a tuck, So you can open it like this and write in here, or put, if you wanted to, you could seal these. No, you couldn't really seal the edges. I guess you could and just have a flap here and have a card tucked in there, but if you do that, you might want to punch a little finger thing here. So I just used the top of the vase. I glued this part down, and so this is the envelope. Let me pull this one. You know, if you cut this off and you cut the sides off that has that extra strip in there, you get a piece, you know, about this wide, because you're cutting off this and this. And then I left this on and just used it as a flap. I stamped from the kit in Night of Navy, and I don't remember if that's boho blue. It might be. I don't think it's Misty Moonlight. So anyway, that's what I did on the inside. I used another part of that envelope flap. I kind of got it a little off center. I was hoping to get it more centered, but I just used that on the inside. And there we go. So that's that one. Oops. Boop. I feel like I'm missing something here, but I don't want to add anything at this point because A, I'm out of stuff. And I feel like I might ruin it if I put anything else on there. Let me put this envelope back with this one, because now we're going to switch to Calypso Coral for a little bit. Oops. Okay, here's my first Calypso Coral one. So this is the card as it was intended, except that that's the one that has the frame, but I used this one, which has the navy stitching around it, but I stamped the vase in Calypso Coral. However, I was having a little issue cleaning my stamp good because my excuse me, my chamois was getting dry, so I was kind of using it as my spritzer bottle and a baby wipe that was also dry. But it didn't really clean it good, but I liked how it turned out because it looked more aged kind of thing. The vase, whatever. So that's actually Calypso Coral, but probably with a hint of some kind of blue with it. And then these are not from the kit, obviously. They were these retired sequins I'm trying to use up. And they are in Calypso Coral. Yes, I have just a few left in that color. So that's what I use there. And this, if you watch my last video, when I pulled out the retired Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder, I had a piece of this in it that had like 3 flowers punched out of it. And this is actually not Calypso Coral. It is, I think, terracotta tile. This was one of the card fronts cut, and then this was from the kit, and I just bumped it up on mini dimensionals. And I also had a Misty Moonlight piece in here, which I used later. So there we go. And then here is the other piece, the other section, because this is about 1 1/4 inches. So that's what this is, and I just put it on the inside with a white envelope. I think they came out pretty. And then we have this one. Okay, so here, this was from this center. But what I did is I flipped it over and I stamped all over it. And I used the other piece later with Calypso Coral, Daffodil Delight, and that squiggly line thing in Old Olive. I stamped on the little flag, just a note in Old Olive, and put a little squiggly in because I actually stamped up a little too high. I think this, yeah, this is one of those banners cut off to put a piece across, and this is a scrap of Daffodil Delight. And then these little yellow dots actually are crushed curry, and these are Old Olive, and they're out of these retired matte decorative dots. They were sort of ombre, but I used some of the darker Old Olive here and here, and some of these little, I didn't write on here the color of the yellow, that's weird, but I think it's crushed curry. Anyway, I really like that one too. And here's where I used, the first time anyway, I used these dies, and I used these from Pink Fresh Studio. But you know, if you have something similar, you can do it too. It doesn't have to be that shape. I just like that shape. And on the inside, just a scrap. This is again that center piece. When you cut a card, one of the cards over to 4, and then the back of it over to 4, you get the seam part, and I used it on the inside. And that's on Calypso Coral cardstock. The next one, now this was a scrap I had from some time, and I mentioned it in my last video. So what I did is I used Calypso Coral, basic white, and then that scrap cut to 4 by 5.5. And then this card base, see the little foxes in it? Well, there were 3 that I could get out, and I used those same dies, the Pink Fresh ones, but in the what is that, no, hexagon, I think. And I ran them through the Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder. So I did 4 in the Calypso Coral, and then I put the little foxies on 3 of them. And this Just a Little High from Me is from a retired stamp set. It was a Celebration Special Moments right here. I was looking for something small to put in that, and I just put it on white. So I wrapped the white twine I showed you earlier 3 times around, tied a bow down here, and then I used those same Calypso Coral embellishments. So we have a little foxy card. I was thinking fall, and wasn't sure I wanted to use leaves, and I didn't really want to make it a fall card, but yeah, so I thought this could be used for anybody. And an extra piece of the striped paper that I had. I forget what the name of that paper was. It also was in my scraps, and it had like big blotchy dots, like big circle blurry dots on the other side of it in different colors. So I thought that came out cute. And then of course I had to use the other part of the card. So here it is. This was one of the card bases where I cut the little foxes out. So on these, I backed this on a piece of white cut to the same size. And then, I don't know if you can tell, but on this one, I did another one of this size shape that's textured in Calypso Coral, and I stuck it behind the paper and glued it down. And then I stamped that same little stamp in Calypso Coral, Just a Little High from Me, and raised this particular hexagon or whatever they're called up. Another little bow, and then these little flowers are retired also, but you can use any kind of gemmies you have. Even Dollar Tree, the sparkly ones they have would be cute. I like that these were in different sizes, and they are in probably, I think, Crushed Curry and Calypso Coral. So on this one, I only used the yellow, the whatever yellow that is. I thought it went well and gave it a little pop. And inside just, yeah, another one of those. So there we have that one. Okay, then I kind of did one, just about like this, except instead of the blue vase, I did another Calypso Coral one. And excuse me, and I didn't have any more Hello Friends, so I think. So I used one of the labels with the yellow on. I stamped in Old Olive, and I put it up at the top because it wouldn't fit down at the bottom. And I did bump this up, so that one's very similar. Oh, and this is the one where I used the Old Olive looking washi tape, and I did 2 strips across it to make it wider. Yeah, just to add a little bit more color to it. And I like how that came out too. See, the blue is starting to get away from my Old Olive, or my Calypso Coral now. It doesn't look so dark as the other one. And inside this one, I used another strip of the washi tape instead. So I thought that came out cute. Pretty close to what this was, but just changing the pot up. So I don't have any blue on that card at all. Now we're back to blue again. I cut up another envelope. This piece here is an envelope, and this piece here is part of that same envelope, the blue part. And I used the stamp set from the kit, which I've buried, and used this and just did all over with that in different directions, I think. Maybe I just did like that. Anyway, I think what I did is I did one this way, and then I turned it to do the bottom up like this. And I got a few a little light, but not too bad. Then on this extra piece, I did use the brick and mortar 3D embossing folder, which might be current. I'm not positive. This is a little piece of envelope too, and I stamped with that little just a note. Here I stamped that vase in Night of Navy and die cut it, and I stamped the little flowers in Night of Navy and boho blue, and I die cut some of the green leaves. And I just made a bunch of flowers coming out of the vase. Here's a hint for you. If you stamp on the envelope, it's a different smoothness. That Night of Navy ink, I had to do it twice because I went to grab it and I flipped it over to put glue on it and it smeared like mad. And I had to even let it sit a little bit. So you either have to heat dry it, but be careful because it'll probably curl. It's small, thinner envelope paper. I was at a breaking point and I think I let it sit overnight and then it was dry. And I did go around the edge of that with the Stampin' Write dye-based marker, any kind of dye-based marker in Night of Navy to try and make it pop off of here and the background a little bit. And then 3 of the dots. Oh, and this is that piece of, I had it saved in my Tasteful Textiles 3D embossing folder. That's Misty Moonlight, and this card base is the boho blue. So I had that in my stash, and of course probably from before Misty Moonlight retired before. Now it's back in as a neutral, but it wasn't before, and so I had that in my stash. So I used that, a piece of envelope that's this long. I think there might have been a seam here, and that's why I decided to do this. Plus it gave something for the vase to sit on. And then inside, I stamped in boho blue with this same stamp here. So I really like that one too. Something different. And then this one, I'm getting down to scraps now here. So actually I had this one full card front left. I put it on Night of Navy. I had this little piece of envelopes a little bit bigger than that, so I ran it through what are they called? Stylish Shapes dies, one of the squares. And I was looking for a scrap of navy big enough to put around it. And I came across in my scraps of cardstock that I had 3 of these scallop squares already cut. So I used it because it was the perfect size. This is one of the punch outs. This is out of the Earthen Textures. I put it on Night of Navy with Versamark and heat embossed with white embossing powder. And then I did bump this up. I did not bump this up, and I kind of wish I had now, but it's okay. It still looks all right. I feel like maybe a little bow out of Night of Navy or something would be nice there, but oh well. And then I told you I'm getting down to scraps. I had some thin pieces and a thin strip of the card base, and I use card base on the next one. So I just put them in stages like this on the inside. Something different. All right. And then use that envelope. Hope you're liking this. And then here I'm really getting down to scraps on these last 2. So this one This is the rest of the envelope that I had used inside that one card. Oops. I'm probably not going to be able to... Was it this one? No. I think it was before this, right? Yeah, it was a while back. Anyway, this was the rest of that envelope. This and this were both the last two pieces of one of the card fronts from this here, one of the cards. And this was another piece I cut of that fishing paper, the denim look stuff. And this I stamped in boho blue and die cut it with the coordinating dies. And then the same ribbon I used previously, the denim bordered ribbon. Yeah, bordered ribbon. I really like it. It's like a lighter blue inside and then a shiny, like a real denim looking inside and then shiny on the out, and it's not real heavy. So I just, oh, and this piece does have a seam. This is loose, so I can show you. There's the seam. So that was where the card cut, and I must have cut that down smaller than I usually do. And anyway, and this probably came out of the same piece. So I just layered them, put that there, 5.5 by, I made this to fit the whole card on boho blue. So it's 5.5 by 4.25. This is 5.5 by approximately 1.25 past the seam. I put this over to the seam, glued it down, glued this down, glued that down, and then this is out of the Special Moments, I think. Yes. For Someone Who is Wonderful in Each and Every Way, which is retired. I stamped it in Night of Navy, went around it with actually boho blue light alcohol marker because I don't have the Stampin' Right for that. And I used a retired punch called Everyday Label. Looks like that. No longer available, I think. And then I used 3 of the dots. And then inside, okay, here's a hint. If you are bad at stamping on these pre-made punch outs and getting it lined up, don't throw it away, because what you can do is put it down here and cut it off. In fact, I could have done that for like 3 of them, 3 or 4 in a row, and just had a whole border of these vases. I just thought of that now. And this was the other piece of the envelope from here, I think, or one of the other envelopes, I don't know, but you can see. And I was going to toss it, and I thought, well, I'll just stick it in there. I think it looks kind of cool. But I'm a little weird that way. So anyway, that's my next to the last card, and one more to go. Back to Calypso Coral. Okay, so I had some little strips of this pattern paper. These are like 1/4 inch strips, and I had 4 of them. The other 2 are on the inside. I had 1 of these banners, which I ran through the Tasteful Textile embossing folder. This was a scrap from a card. It was this. I had that left only in that size, right? So I made, and I had half of this from one of those pocket things I did from this. And I had already this paper left that I had stamped on. That was off the same piece as this. Okay, one of those big, it was this one. So what I did is I pulled out a Calypso Coral card base. I made one. I put that scrap down. I put this down, which, well, before I put this down, I ran it through the embossing folder. I took 2 strips, and to get them to glue together, I put them on a piece of white scrap and glued them down, and then cut it around the edges, and then I flagged it. And then I glued that onto this piece, which I have a little extra glue. And then I wrapped the twine around the top of both of them together, and then I tied a bow at the top, and just left it dangle like that. And then this piece here is glued down, but because I had some layers here, I actually put a piece of scrap, you know, one of those long strips like off the envelopes or something off the card base. I put it underneath here so it would be more level with this. And this is, because I had used this differently, I had one of these frames left. Well, I cut it also, but I put both halves, which is about 2.5 inches, on top of each other. So there's a tiny little bit of dimension, but not like if you bump it up on the sticky foam. And then I did another one of those hexagon things, but just in plain Calypso coral, no texture on it. And here I stamped on one of these white pieces Calypso coral. Well, I stamped the center flower first in Daffodil Delight and then kind of angled it up in Calypso coral. Took the two the squiggly line thing and did little lines at the top, because you don't have that pretty, like the dots and stuff and lines like you do on the vase, the stamp for the vase. So I did my own, and then I did a little bit larger Just a Note from the Go-To Greetings in Calypso coral on a piece of white. These were both on white. This was one of these actually, but this was a scrap of white, and I stamped in Calypso coral, and then I just took my blending brush on those two pieces and used Daffodil Delight and added color to them to make them something a little different. And then I used some of the Calypso coral and whatever the color is of those little resin flowers I showed you previously. And inside, I had a little bit bigger piece of this, just a strip though, but I cut it down and I put one of the last two. I should have probably put both of them on here, but I didn't. And I flagged that again and just put a little flag there on the side, like I have a flag in the front, right? So that is my last alternative using the Welcome In paper pumpkin kit, and using some of my scraps up and trying to come up with not too difficult but unique ways to use your set, right? And obviously everybody's going to have different scraps. Use the envelopes too. Now the only thing I'll say about using the envelopes is that when you use the envelopes, you have to replace them if you're going to use these cards to put different envelopes with them, right? So let me know if you have a favorite. I really kind of like this foxy one, but you know, I'm partial to blue, so of course I like blue. I really like that one too though. And I think they're all pretty, but let me know what you think. Do you like them? What's your favorite? I'm not numbering them or anything, so you just have to tell me. You know, the one with the yellow around the blue or whatever. Some of them are similar to the samples, but I think some are a little different, and I think I did okay. Okay, these are the ones, right? No, this is different because it has a thank you there instead of the welcome that came in a kit. So these are the three as intended. All right, everybody, that's it. 18 cards total, 3 as intended and 15 alternatives. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again next month with the new paper pumpkin kit that's going to be all about summer, it looks like. All right, take care, have a good day, and thank you so much for watching.